Okay, let's move on, and we are going to start to talk about visualizations. And visualization, as I said in the earlier videos, and that is one of the important aspects I want to emphasize on in my course. And why visualization is important? Uh, in when you are trying to sell your ideas, it could be at a very early stage, and you identify some problem and you want to convey or persuade some people that that is really a problem you have to put the resources on. Or if you have your cool findings, and then you want to show that to other people and make sure that they are buying in your idea. So either way, you can show your your great code if you want to, but not other people are interested in seeing your 100 or 1000 lines of code. And how do you show your work or show your idea? And that is visualization. And in industry, and people use visualization more than you can imagine. And I'm not talking to some of the consultant company, and they are expert on that. But even for any technical companies, when you are trying to show something not to your team member but to some people on the higher level, and then you have to be very good with visualizations. And before we talk about any coding, and I want to show you this, and this is called Charles Minard map, and this shows the Napoleon's campaign into Russia in 1812. And usually if I'm teaching in class and I'm gonna ask student who can tell me this story, and usually I'm lucky enough that in my classes, and there are one or two history buffs, and they can tell me the story. But unfortunately, I'm recording a video here in my office, so I have to tell you the story by myself. Okay, so Napoleon have had almost conquered all the countries, all the land in Europe, and then he looked to the east side, and then he found, oh, there is another huge country, and it was Russia. Okay, so Napoleon brought a big army and sent and lead them to the east side, and then he started here, and then they marched to the right side, and you see the end, and here it was Moscow. Okay, and when he started this campaign going to Russia, Moscow, and then the weather was still okay, but probably Napoleon didn't have a good understanding on how big Russia was, and then how cold the winter there could be. And then Russian also did the right thing. So they fought against Napoleon for a little bit. And then they decided, okay, you want to came, and then you want to conquer Moscow. Okay, we just empty Moscow, and then you come here, you sit at Moscow, but we ain't gonna fight you. If you want to stay here and enjoy the winter at Moscow, go ahead, but you're gonna suffer. So it was the Russian plan at that time. So eventually Napoleon went to Moscow. It was almost an empty city, and then the supply was really, really hard in the fall and the winter. And then, Napoleon very disappointedly he find that even after he has already taken Moscow, there was no fight. There was no fight from Russian, and then he find, okay, what's the point? And what's the point that I conquer a empty city, Moscow, and then this make the supply so far away and so hard, and then he decided to win back. But when on his way going back, and then number one, the winter came, and then it was really cold, and then they didn't have enough winter supplies. And number two, Russian found Napoleon was retreating, and then they started to to fight back, and they started to attack Napoleon's army. And then those two factors added together, and eventually when Napoleon went back, he had lost the majority of his army, and it was a side story. But and by the way, in World War II, and this kind of story kind of happened again. Probably you know that. Okay. Anyhow, let's come back to this map. So on this map, for the pink bar, that is Napoleon's way from France to Moscow, and then the black bar is his army, the way of his army way back. Okay, and then the V's of the army, sorry, the V's of the bar, that is the size of the army. Okay, so let me ask you a quick question. Since we understand the V's of the bar is the size of the army, where did Napoleon already lost half of his army? So take a look. So the bar, the pink bar, started as this size, and then probably here, probably even less than halfway from to Moscow, and then he had already lost half of his original army. Is that right? So if you check the V's here and the V's here, so when he was not no more than halfway to Moscow, and then he had already lost half of the army. And let me ask you another thing. Well, in the stay at Moscow, did Napoleon lost a lot of his army? At the period of time he stayed in Moscow, did he lost a lot of his army? So if you check the V's of the pink bar here and the black bar here, and you can get the answer. The answer is no, right? So there was no fight at Moscow, and then Napoleon find, okay, that's too cold, and then I just conquered a empty city. There's no point to stay here, and then he left. Okay, and then another cool thing is here. Well, the bottom part. So the bottom part it shows the temperature. So and you can see the when he left Moscow, which is here, and then the temperature was still above zero, and then soon when he was here, and the temperature was already negative, and then we have -20, -11, and -30. Okay, so it was definitely super cold. So when as the way he went back, and then the temperature also became Napoleon's enemy, and eventually he lost a lot, really, really a lot, right? And then, well, if you want to focus on this part, so here you can see there's a river, right? So Napoleon's army, when they went across the river, what happened? It seemed that this army, already a very thin bar, but when this bar crossed the river, the V's of this bar dropped by one half again. So somehow, when his army went across this river, something happened, and then he lost a big portion of his army at that time too. Okay, so well, probably that's it. And well, after we understand, and if you understand what is this image, and then you can say there are really, really a lot of the features, a lot of the attributes compressed together, and then put into the single visualization, right? So we have the Napoleon's army and the size of the Napoleon's army, the location of the map, the longitude, the latitude, and then the temperature, and then the direction of travel. And then we do have a lot of information compressed together into such a small visualization, right? And that is the power of the visualization. And you may feel like most of the visualizations we only show one dimension, two dimension, or three dimension of the data, and that is the visualization you see most of the time. And for example, if you want to see the Trump versus the Biden poll, and then we only have two lines, so well, this visualization is very easy to interpret. And well, if you're watching the cable channel, and then this visualization may only stay on the screen for 5-10 seconds, and you get the point. But for this kind of visualization, we compress really a lot of information on one single graph, and then based on one single graph, we really have a lot of things to talk about. So this is kind of a cool visualization, and that is the way we want to pursue. Okay. Well, and this is a part of the knowledge you should already learn from Dr. Brown's course, and he talked a little bit about matplotlib, and say if we have 4 years, and then the world population of those 4 years in billions, and then we can easily do a line chart. you can simply do you want to import the matplotlib first, and then you have two lists, the year and the population. And if you want to do a plot, and then year as the x-axis and the population as the y-axis, and then you do a show, and you're gonna have this. And that is not so hard at all. And then we see the world population is increasing, and it's kind of a increasing, almost a linear increase, right? uh, and another argument I want to ask is, how about we make it a scatter? So if you want to do plot.scatter, and again, year as x-axis and the population as a y-axis, and then we have a scatter plot. And my question is, which one do you like the better? The line chart or the scatter plot? Well, and when you are showing this visualization, or when you are presenting this visualization, first you have to answer this question. Do you have enough data to show the continuity of the data? And do you want to emphasize the trend based on the current data set? Okay, so that is not the technical part of the visualization. That is the thinking part of the visualization. Well, the coding part is, or the technical part, is not the hardest. Well, whenever there's a technical problem, there has to be a solution. Well, I'm optimistic about the technical issues. However, the thinking part is important. And from my perspective, we only have 4 years. We only have four data points. And then just if we want to do a visualization and say there is a linear trend of the world population, and probably we are not that confident, right? Because we only have the data for 4 points, and then combine them together, we have a span of 60 years roughly. So doing a line chart could be a little bit too much. Okay, I would prefer to stay with a scatter plot in this case. Okay, and now here is an exercise for you, and now I can give you a better data set. So I have the year from the 1950, and then if you want to scroll to the right side, I think it is uh, to 2100. Well, that is, well, almost 100 years away, right? And then that is a history population and plus the predicted population. Okay, and then we can really make a visualization like this. So for this one, if you want to make it a line chart, and I would say definitely good, because now I do have the good data set that I can show the trend, and the trend is not a linear if you want to consider a longer time span. And then you can see we started a kind of a fast increase, and then eventually after we kind of reach 10 billion or so, and then the trend slows down, right? So that is the visualization. And again, the technical part, this is not so hard. But let me ask you this: how do you want to tell a story based on this visualization? Okay, and you may say this visualization is easy, there's nothing to talk about. Well, there are some interesting to talk about. And let me ask you this: so for example, when did we have 4 billion as the population in the world? 4 billion. What year was that? So if you want to check 4, and then it was roughly 1980, right? And then let me ask the next question. When was this number doubled? Okay, and then 4 double will be 8. And then it is roughly 2020, right? So what does that mean? That means from 1980 to 2020, only 60 years, and then we double the world population. Oh, that sounds scary, right? And then how about the next part? And now say we have already got 8 billion, right? And then when are we gonna have the number of the population double again? That's an interesting question. So think about that. And 8 billion already, if you want double that, that's 16 billion, right? Can Where is 16 billion? And the answer is we don't have that. So what's going on? It seems that to have the world population double again in the next 100 years, probably we won't have that, right? And okay, and then I want to bring another interesting part. That is the John Cowhounds experiment. Well, and if you know this story, and this is really an interesting side story to talk about, and especially when you are putting this visualization and the next visualization together, you can tell a really interesting story. So let me try. Well, I know this story, so let me tell you this story first. Okay, and then for John Calhoun, well, he did an experiment. He used a very, very big area, and then in this area, he started four pairs of mice, only four pairs, and then the area is really large, and then the temperature is okay, and they have the unlimited water and the food supply. So that is the best place for those four mice. And what is going to happen? Well, they don't need to worry about other predators, and then they have enough food, they have enough water, and then they're gonna have a lot of babies, right? So at a very short period of time, and then the researcher observed that the population of the mice increased a lot. Well, but to at a certain point, and he found that, well, the the area, even though it's big, but there are really too many mice, and then the area become crowded. And what happened? And then, well, they started to have less babies, and he observed that for big portion of the mice, they just lost interest in having more babies, and eventually, so this is a quick growing phase, and then eventually he find that the whole colony of the mice were dying. Well, not individual mice, but the whole population of the mice, the colony of the mice was dying. Okay, is that scary, by the way? Okay, and another thing I want to talk about is, well, if you check the y-axis, he applied the log scale to the y-axis. So from from 10 to 100, so increase 10 times. And then from 10 to 1000 to 100 to 1000, it was a 10 time increase. So every 10 times increase, and then the b's will be the same. Okay, so if you check this one, so even though it seemed that the population was the growth has slowed a little bit, but remember, we are using the log scale. So if you put it back to the normal scale, I would say, well, this trend still grows like crazy at that time. But anyhow, at a certain point, the population of the mice started to decrease and decrease and decrease. It was scary because the mice, because of the area is so crowded, and then there was some culture started to develop, and then the mice just lost interest in having babies. Okay, why am I talking about this? This is a side story that if I was presenting this visualization, I want to talk about. Okay, so just now we asked a question, and the answer was, well, from the 1980 to 2020, and then the world population doubled. And I asked you, when will the world population double again? And based on this prediction, what was the answer? The answer was, the population may never get doubled again. And why? Okay, now it's the time for this story. And if you know this, if you understand this, and then you may have a deep concern about human being, and that our population in the world will never double again, and we may have even bigger problem. And once, if we are human being is in this trend going down, and we don't know what is going to happen. Okay, well, this is side story to talk about. You can talk about if you are presenting this visualization. Okay, this visualization is a small visualization. It's not so special, not so complicated, but if you want to make this storytelling interesting, you can still do that. Okay, that's my point, and I will see you in the next video.